Hi Buffet. How are you? How are you, Buffet? This is your boy back again, Buffet. This is Mtembi. So you remember, guys, that there was before. Okay, some of you weren't born. Now I wasn't born. I was very young. So there was a political fight between the ANC and the IFP, and that fight it can be that fight it can be said it can also be classified as the tribal fight between the Zulus and the Xhosas. However, that fight was between the IFP and the ANC. It was not a tribal fight. Because even in KZN, where people 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 there are predominantly Zulus, they also clash along those political lines. So that was not a tribal fight; it was a political fight. So the IFP Deputy President Mzansi has called for reconciliation with the ANC to heal historical wounds. The story is written by Mlungisi Mhlophe Gumede. IFP Deputy President Inkosi Mzamo Buthelezi has called for renewed reconciliation talks between the party and the ANC to heal wounds inflicted during the so-called black-on-black violence in the 80s and mid-90s. Speaking during the party's 50th birthday celebration at Prince Mangosuthu Sutu Stadium in Ulund on Sunday, Buthelezi said reconciliation between the two parties was needed to ensure a united South Africa. I want to address an issue that weighed heavily on the late Mangosuthu Buthelezi's conscience until his final death. Yeah, I think really that thing, that was the biggest mistake on both parties, guys. The ANC and FPO, it was the biggest mistake. Shouldn't ever happen again. Black people fighting for political reasons or for anything. We shouldn't fight for anything among each other. Black on black violence is that's the dumbest thing ever. Take us back 1,000 years back. I want to address an issue that weighs in on the late Prince Mangosuthu until his final death. The profound need for reconciliation between the IFP and the ANC. This division has caused deep wounds in our nation's history, and healing them is essential for the well-being of our beloved country, said Buthelezi. He appealed to leaders of both parties to embrace the reconciliation, adding that the late Buthelezi had dedicated his entire life to championing the cause. Our late leader knew that without reconciliation between the two parties, there is no future for the country, he said. Buthelezi said they needed to do this to honor those who had lost their lives during the struggle. IFP and ANC supporters waged an intestine war against each other in 80s and mid-90s, which was allegedly fueled by the dead force. Yes, not alleged. It was fueled by the dead force. It's a known fact. I don't know. Probably there are documents somewhere in the archives that can tell the story that the security branch of the South African police, South African government was supplying some people with the weapons. From where do black people get weapons? The ANC, they got the weapons maybe from the Soviet Union, but the IFP, where did they get the weapons? They're being sponsored by the dead force. Our IFP and ANC supporters waged an intense war. The war, which claimed thousands of lives, began in KwaZulu-Natal and spread to other parts of the country. Mangosuthu Buthelezi was fingered for being behind the war, a claim he denied, saying his hands were clean. KwaZulu-Natal spokesperson Fanele Sibisi said the ANC was more than willing to engage with the ISP on reconciliation. In fact, the ANC is also championing the cause that the two parties reconcile, said Sibisi. Black people shouldn't ever fight again, never and never again. Black people fighting over political law or over anything. We know our enemies, guys. We know our enemy. We know. Definitely we're not to enemy to one another. Zulu and Xhosa is not an enemy. IFP and ANC, they're not an enemy. All these black political parties are not enemies. But the enemy is dividing them. The enemy, the real enemy, is dividing these parties for his own agenda. Keep on looting South African resources. And they're falling for that trap, these people. They're falling for that trap. Instead of uniting and fighting against this enemy who controls 90% of our economy. But this is your boy Mtembele. This is Mzansi Political Journal. Catching me like, subscribe. Catch me on the next